Hey fighters, you're watching WrestleWire 24/7, your go-to for everything WWE. Subscribe, tap the bell, and let's dive deep. A hush has fallen over the Karawoka wrestling family, a dynasty once known for its fire, resilience, and the kind of pride that made arenas tremble. The same bloodline that gave fans legends and heroes is now gathered around a hospital bed, holding hands and whispering prayers. The headlines that once celebrated their triumphs have turned into quiet updates, and for the first time, a family that taught millions what it means to be fearless is learning what it feels like to be powerless. The roar of the crowd has faded into the low hum of machines, and the champions of old have become witnesses to something even greater than glory. The fragility of life itself, the whispers that became truth. At first, the silence seemed like part of the show. Fans speculated, thinking perhaps the absence of the family's greatest star was another twist in a scripted rivalry. Missed appearances, canceled promos, and backstage secrecy were dismissed as clever storytelling. But as days passed, that silence grew heavier. The laughter on social media turned into concern when family members, voices trembling, asked for privacy and prayers. What began as rumor hardened into reality. There were no cameras now, no theme music or pyrotechnics, only the weight of uncertainty and the raw humanity of a family facing what no storyline could ever prepare them for. The night they gathered. When the call went out, they came quietly. Siblings, uncles, cousins, children, all bound by blood and legacy. They filled the sterile hospital corridors with memories of childhood, with the scent of home-cooked food, and with the same love that once filled locker rooms and family barbecues. An elder took a chair near the bedside and began to speak softly, recounting stories of the boy who once pretended to be a champion before he ever stepped into a ring. There were no cameras, no audience, just the sound of love trying to reach someone who could no longer answer. The family that had always been larger than life now sat shoulder to shoulder, small beneath the shadow of worry. The private struggle. No one saw. Those who knew him best admitted that there had been signs. A canceled meeting here, a postponed flight there, a growing fatigue brushed off as exhaustion. Like so many who carry expectations too big for one heart, he said little about the pain he felt. The man who had carried others for so long didn't want to be the one who needed carrying. Pride is a powerful thing. It can build legacies, but it can also isolate. His friends later said they wished he had spoken sooner, that he had let them share the weight. But silence can be learned, especially when strength is mistaken for never asking for help. The world reacts. When the truth finally surfaced, it didn't matter what team, company, or era fans belonged to. The world stood still. Hashtags became prayers. Rivals posted messages of love. Candlelight vigils appeared outside arenas where crowds once screamed his name. In Tokyo, New York, and Samoa, people gathered not to celebrate a champion, but to thank a man who gave them courage through his resilience. The wrestling world, known for competition, did something rare. It united. And in that unity, the noise of the business gave way to something sacred. Humanity. The rituals of home. Back in the family's ancestral village, the elders began the old chants. Songs in languages older than wrestling echoed into the night. Fires were lit, prayers recited, and offerings made in the belief that the spirits of their ancestors would guide and protect one of their own. It was a scene far removed from flashing lights and modern headlines, a reminder that before fame, there is family, before legacy, there is love. Those rituals weren't about fame or glory. They were about connection, about calling home the strength that once built an empire. Bring him back to us, the elders whispered, not as a champion, but as our son. The pressure of being larger than life. Fame can be a beautiful prison. When the world calls you a hero, it becomes difficult to admit you're human. The man who had inspired millions to stand tall had been quietly shrinking under the weight of his own myth. He was expected to be unbreakable, to smile for cameras, to shoulder storylines, to carry an industry. But behind the bravado was exhaustion. The family, now seeing the cost of that perfection, began to ask themselves what the price of strength really is. Perhaps they thought, true strength isn't about standing tall. It's about allowing yourself to fall and be caught. Decisions in the quiet, behind closed doors where cameras could not intrude, doctors and family spoke in hushed voices. There were charts, options, and risks, words that none of them wanted to hear. Hope flickered like the fluorescent lights above. Outside, fans debated theories, but inside those rooms, every breath mattered. The family clung to faith, to science, to love, anything that could promise one more sunrise. They weren't celebrities now. They were just people, desperate for good news and terrified of what silence might mean. Children and the tender moments. What truly broke hearts weren't the public statements, but the private moments that no one saw. A daughter tracing her father's hand with her fingers. A son whispering a story that used to make him laugh. The small stuffed toy left on the nightstand. Symbols of innocence in a room filled with sorrow. In those moments, titles, trophies, and belts meant nothing. What mattered was the sound of family, the quiet hum of love, and the shared hope that somehow things would be okay again. The industry pauses. For once, the business that never stops, stopped. Creative teams shelved scripts. Live shows dimmed their spotlights. Wrestlers who had been booked for months called in to ask for time off. Even the executives who built empires on entertainment looked human, their eyes heavy with the realization that no storyline was worth a person's well-being. "We can wait," one producer said. "The world can wait." In an industry built on illusion, this was the most real thing it had ever faced. Ritual, memory, and the long road ahead. Weeks turned into months, and the world continued to watch with patience and hope. Vigils continued outside arenas, while songs and prayers persisted across oceans. In the family's homeland, children painted murals celebrating his legacy, not just as a champion, but as a symbol of perseverance. The family found strength in community, realizing that even if recovery was slow, healing had already begun. What was once a tragedy had become a testament to how love can rebuild what fame sometimes breaks. Closing, what lives after the spotlight. In the end, the story of the Karaoke family isn't about wins and losses. It's about humanity, about how a family, a business, and an entire community rediscovered compassion in the face of fear. The man who once stood at the center of arenas may return or may rest, but his impact is already eternal. He reminded everyone that heroes are human, that strength is not measured by applause, but by how gently we hold one another when the lights go out. And when the spotlight fades, what remains is what truly matters. Love, family, and the quiet promise to never let silence be the cost of survival.